everybody. It has been a hot minute since I have made a video review. Welcome everybody to Erin's Audio Corner. And if you're new here, I provide subjective and objective reviews of loudspeakers and stereo home theater equipment. Today I'm going to be reviewing the Genelec 8361a. Now this is in line with the One loudspeaker series from Genelec, which are known for their excellent capabilities as studio monitors. This particular version, being the largest one, is also suitable for higher output far field listening. And when I say far field, I mean past a couple meters, okay? Now, generally, studio monitors are used in the near field. And again, typically near field is going to be something around 1 meter distance from the listener. With these speakers being tailored more for the near field, but being also useful for the far field, I did take the time to listen to these speakers in both conditions. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to give you a couple specifications. Starting off, the price per pair is approximately $11,000. So these are not cheap, but as you'll see in the data, you get really fantastic performance out of these particular speakers. This is a three-way design that features two 10-inch drivers that are loaded at the front of the enclosure. And you can see these in the exploded view here, the top one and then the bottom one. And then this notch right here allows the woofers to essentially breathe out. In the middle, you have a 5-inch coaxial mid-range with the tweeter inset. And this tweeter is a 1-inch metal dome tweeter. This is a powered speaker that has a total of 700 watts on the low frequency drivers, 150 watts on the mid-range, and 150 watts on tap for the tweeter, totaling up to about 1,000 watts. On the back, there are some different dip switches. You have bass roll-off, you have bass profile, and then you have treble profile as well. On top of this, you have desk or console compensation. So when you put the speaker on top of a console, you get more reinforcement from the midwoofer. This dip switch allows you to kind of take away some of that reinforcement so it sounds more natural instead of too chesty. As I said, the speaker is rather large, and you can see in this video, I struggled a little bit getting the speaker on top of the Klippel near-field scanner. The speaker weighs about 70 pounds, and putting this on top of a 4-foot stand, it's not easy. Listen, I'm not the strongest guy in the world, but I'm not the weakest guy in the world either, and it still took me a little bit of effort to get the speaker up there. I'll also go ahead and mention now that I did not use this speaker or test this speaker with the GLM software and microphone that Genelec also provides. Now, the GLM is an add-on feature for about $450. There's a lot of features that GLM has, but for this particular test, if I were to use it, essentially it would have played a role as room correction. Some of my Patreon members had some concerns, or really just some complaints about me not using GLM. Frankly, it wasn't something that I felt was necessary. In hindsight, maybe I should have done it. But I could still make the argument that if I were to have to use GLM in this review, then I would also have to use something like Direct Live for all my passive speaker reviews. And frankly, there's just not a lot of time in my day to do all of that. So I reviewed this speaker as I do all other speakers on its own. In the far field listening situation, the speaker was set up in my living room. I put the speaker anywhere from about 1 foot to about 3 feet off the front wall. So you have space between the back of the speaker to the wall behind the speaker. I also played around with aiming the speaker. Ultimately, I wound up listening to the speaker primarily at about 5 to 10 degrees off axis, toed out slightly. The reason I did that is because it smoothed out the upper mid-range and the lower treble region. And in doing this, I also was able to expand the soundstage width. Now, this is always something that you're going to want to play with. And as far as placing the speaker off the wall, it was about 2 feet. Again, this is something that is going to depend on you and your room. But the data gives us a good idea of how these things work in the way that they do. And it kind of lines up with something that at least makes sense. Now, my listening impressions for this speaker honestly are pretty simple. Most of the time in my reviews, I nitpick speakers and I give a lot of feedback because I'm talking about the things that I heard that I didn't really care for. I know a lot of reviewers tend to talk about the positives of a speaker and they use nice wording to do that. But for me, if I'm being a reviewer, I'm listening analytically. Now, as a daily listener, it's a little bit different, and I'm probably not listening as analytically, but anything that stands out in a negative way is going to be something that I noticed first and foremost. So, with that in mind, I will say that I had no issues with these speakers. Frankly, it's one of the better speakers that I've heard. I will say that in the far field, you might notice a little bit of uptick in the upper mid range. But if you listen to the speaker in the near field, again, about a meter or so away, it's going to sound more neutral. The reason for that will be discussed in a little bit. If you've been following my reviews, you know that I like a speaker that radiates pretty widely and gives me a nice sense of envelopment in terms of stereo width. Now, there are cases where a speaker may radiate too wide and it has too many reflections in my room. If you listen to a speaker in a room that doesn't have sidewalls, you're going to get a completely different sound as you do if you listen to a speaker in a room with sidewalls. And again, this is where the data is extremely helpful, but you have to know how to look at it. That said, with this speaker, you have additional radiation around the 2 to 3 kilohertz region, upper mid range. And that additional radiation causes that little bit of a bump in the upper frequency, okay? For my taste, this speaker's radiation width was pretty much dead on exactly where I want it to be at about plus or minus 60 degrees, as you can see here. The other feature about this particular design, it being a coaxial design flanked by the midwoofers above and below it, it has almost perfect symmetry vertically. I mean, realistically, it's the exact same going above the tweeter line as it is going below the tweeter line. Why do you care about that? Well, if you sit with your head in a vise, not a big deal. But if you walk around your room or you entertain and you have multiple seats and people who are different heights, or maybe you've got a home theater setup where you have multiple rows, and yes, this speaker is perfectly capable of high SPL in a home theater setup. If you're in those kind of positions where you use the speaker in those ways, then having smooth vertical radiation that is the same above and below that tweeter axis with wide dispersion at, again, about plus or minus 60 degrees, you've got a lot of room for error. When you're walking around the room, it's going to sound very similar as it does when you're sitting in front of the speaker. And that's a good thing. In terms of linearity, we've got this CEA 2034 data set in front of us. We can see that the frequency response is quite smooth. There is a dip around 200 hertz that shows up as maybe some sort of resonance. Now, frankly, I'm not entirely sure what that is. I didn't spend a lot of time diving into this particular aspect. One of my Patreon members noted that there seems to be some extra radiation toward the back of the speaker. That would explain why we see an on-axis dip. The directivity is very smooth, but I did want to note, and this is just from an engineering curiosity perspective, that you see the sound power increasing, let's say, relatively rapidly in the bass region and the lower mid-range compared to the mid-range and upper mid-range. So I drew a little arrow here to show you. We're increasing, and then we kind of flatten out, and the rate of increasing is a little bit less in the mid-range than it is in the upper mid-bass region, or below about 300 hertz, depending on how you want to define that. That also aligns with the crossover, at least the spec crossover, of approximately 320 hertz. If we talk about estimated in-room response, and note, I've got this down here at the bottom, EIR, estimated in-room response, is not an ideal evaluation of a near-field monitor, and instead you should use the on-axis response for this particular application, near-field monitor. But for far-field listening, this estimated in-room response is a pretty good indicator of how you're likely to hear the speaker. So I drew this line to kind of give you an idea of what I'm talking about earlier when I said the upper mid-range has a little bit of an uptick to it. Now, I could have taken this line and drawn it to match the lower mid-range right here. It's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, but the trend still shows up to be the same. In-room extension down to about 35 hertz. So technically, you don't have to have a subwoofer, but Genelec does make a big subwoofer that you can pair with this particular speaker. And now I'm going to do the sound clip. If we go back and we talk about the direct on-axis linearity, we look at the frequency response, and outside of this dip around 200 hertz that I talked about previously, you're looking at within about plus or minus 1 decibel or so. This is the burst decay, and now we're going to talk about SPL capability and distortion. I had this speaker cranked up really, really loud. Unfortunately, I didn't take an SPL measurement, but when I'm talking really loud, I'm talking 90 decibels plus at about 10 feet away. I didn't have any issues with this speaker bottoming out with the woofers. I didn't have any issues with glaring from intermodulated distortion, any issues with higher order distortion modes popping up and creating some other issues, especially in the mid-range, upper mid-range, and lower treble, like I would notice with speakers that tend to have higher distortion. So if we look at this 86 decibels and then we look at 96 decibels, the overall distortion is below about 1% for the majority of this speaker. And then if we go to multi-tone distortion, which is closer to emulating real music, again, we're looking at below about 1% overall. This is really, really low. Long-term compression, practically non-existent. And then short-term compression, we see that there's some limiting of the tweeter. Now, the way that I run short-term compression is sometimes more problematic for active speakers that have limiting built into them because it triggers that limiting very quickly. And sometimes it doesn't quite relay to how the speaker will perform in real world with real music. That's why I also use this long-term compression. Again, this is closer to what you get in real world use because this is not a sine wave. This is closer to something like actual pink noise. The interesting part here is that Genelec recently released, as in like a couple months ago, their 8380 SAM speaker. Now, as you can see here, it retails for about $10,000 each. So you're looking at $20K a pair. It uses, as far as I know, the same 5-inch coaxial driver that this particular 8361a uses. But instead of having the two 10-inch oval woofers above and below, it uses a single 15-inch mid-bass driver. This thing looks like a hoss. So I have reached out to Genelec and I've asked them if I could potentially get these in for review. Everybody in the comment section, please beg them to send me one of these and maybe we can guilt trip them into let me borrow a pair to review, because if nothing else, I just want to set these up and crank on them. Maybe I shouldn't say that out loud. Additionally, if I were to review the 8380, I will ask for the GLM module so I can do the testing with that. Overall, 8361a, fantastic speaker. If you're looking at it already as an option for your studio or your home theater or just stereo hi-fi listening, I have absolutely no problem giving it 2 thumbs up. And that all said, let me ask you another favor. If you'd like to support this channel, there are a few ways that you can do that. You can join me at patreon.com/Erin's Audio Corner, link in the description below. Alternatively, if you don't want to spend a single dime extra, but you're going to buy something anyway from Amazon or Crutchfield or Walmart or Target, Guitar Center even, I have some generic affiliate links. Please do me a favor. Before you go buy anything, click one of those links. That'll open you up to a new page, and anything you buy through that link will earn me a small commission, and it doesn't cost you a single dime extra. And that stuff really adds up and allows me to do this, to get lunch, to go on vacation, and it's just a cool way to help me out. Again, doesn't cost you anything extra. With that all said, I truly appreciate your time. Hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you all later. Take care. Peace. Oh, and if you're wondering about the shirt, say when. If you know what this is from, let me know in the comments. Peace.